Yoga.
Here we go. We're back on Mental Health Matters with Dr. Scott Terry. And we got a full house today. We got three incredible guests here. So we got Mary, Pamela, and Nicole. And today we are talking about, Mary, what are we talking about? Breathing and connecting to our body, which helps our brain. And storytelling is a way to concretize almost that sense of how we're connecting to ourselves and to others. How's that?
Yes, that sounds good. So I'm Mary Platt, and I'm a yoga teacher, Qigong teacher, and also a storyteller. Even though they sound disconnected to me, the three are actually very connected.
Absolutely. By the way, you're listening to Mental Health Matters with Dr. Scott Terry. And these shows are archived on KRUU 100.1 on your FM dial. Also, you can go to YouTube and type in Ardent Counseling Center and look them up there, or go to the ardentcenter.com website and go to the media tab, and you'll see them in iTunes or as podcast or as in YouTube videos. All kinds of formats there, 4 different formats. ardentcenter.com, ARDENTCENTER.com, if you're so interested. Not promoting anything, just if you just want to see some shows. All right. Broadcast, by the way, on, when do we broadcast? Tuesdays, 6:30, and Thursdays, 12:30. That's right. Okay. So, Nicole, say hi.
Hello, everyone, and I am Nicole Hester Williams, and I am a journalist here in Fairfield. I work for the Fairfield Ledger, and it's an honor to be here today. I have so enjoyed Mary Platt during our last show, and I just can't wait for today's show.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Dr. Promila-Nicole. I'm working as professor at Maharishi University of Management. I'm really excited to listen more stories from Mary.
You can tell how much we love the stories. Okay, we're all little kids loving the stories, but maybe that's part of it. Is that we all want the story. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's start with the story of breathing. And just make it concrete. Let's use your other side for a second. You're our Qigong instructor as well as a yoga instructor. And both are part of breathing. But I also talk to clients, and again, you could be the most concrete, non-spiritual client in the world. But again, you need to get this concept that the brain and body are connected. Your brain is not in a jar. One of my favorite shows long ago was this show called Futurama. I don't know if you guys ever saw it.
My kids love Futurama.
Okay, so in this show, they had people's heads in a jar, and these heads could talk. It's in the future. It's part of the future. It's a comedy. It's a cartoon.
Exciting.
Yeah, and so they have Nixon's head in a jar, and Nixon would talk and stuff. And it was hilarious. Okay, but we kind of incorporate that nowadays, where we don't get how we're connected. So I often talk about the gut-brain connection, and how 95% of our serotonin is produced in our stomach, not in our head. How working on our lifestyle issues influences how our brain works, which influences how our mind is, so that we feel in control of our lives. And we have power over lives, and the patterns that we create in our lives can be transformed. So again, it's all connected. And so getting that sense of how do we connect our brain to our body, so that our mind could be what we want it to be.
Well, in yoga and in Qigong, breath is said to be the connector between the mind and the body.
Okay.
So we're all breathing. How often do we notice that we're breathing until something happens and we can't breathe? Right? Or, or we're breathing too fast because we were running or whatever. So,
or on the opposite, we're scared and we're hyperventilating, or we're in a fight with our partner or something like that. How are we breathing? How are we connecting to ourselves instead of getting lost in the other person or the other situation, our boss who's yelling at us?
Right, exactly.
And so it's like finding that sense of connection. But also very much on a literal level, we talk about certain kind of habits we get into. So some people smoke. Well, what does smoking do? It constricts the blood vessels, and you're choking the blood and oxygen to the brain. And you then wonder why your brain isn't working as well. Or, as Dr. Amen famously said, right now I get to say Dr. Amen's statement, is what's good for the heart is good for the brain, which is good for your genitals. And if you can't, and I won't say penis here. All right. Oh, I did say it. All right. So, people have erectile dysfunction and other kinds of basic functionalities. I'm now making Nicole embarrassed here, which is great. So, it's really about getting blood flow and oxygenating our brain. So how do we do that? So, Mary, you're going to give us a couple examples of what to do and then tell us a story. So
Okay.
start with what to do. Let's start with
what to
tofu
do.
of the matter here.
Start some job for Mary.
Yes.
So each emotional state actually has a breathing pattern. And in yoga and qigong, there are hundreds or perhaps even thousands of different, very specific breathing techniques that have very specific results. But the basic concept is that if you can change your breath, you can change your mind. So, for example, if you are, when they're angry, it's mostly exhaling, yelling. It's exhale, hardly any inhale. So, if you were to introduce an opposite breathing pattern, long, slow exhale, instead of the long, sharp, short, sharp exhale. So anger, that's what I'm saying. So you elongate the exhale. It calms the system down. It gives space in the mind for kind of gathering your resources. That's one example.
So what I've often heard of it for people to focus on is a count. So breathe, like Dr. Wells' counting system for sleeping. Mm-hmm. Breathe in for 4, hold it for 7, and breathe out for 8.
Right. That also gives, the counted breath is a wonderful thing because the counting gives the mind something to focus on.
As opposed to the anger pattern or whatever that is, or the anxious pattern when I'm trying to go to sleep.
Exactly. So in general, elongating the exhale has a very calming effect. Long, slow exhale. Elongating the inhale has more of an uplifting and exciting effect. So you can use the count if you want to elongate your exhale. So maybe you inhale for 4 counts, hold for 2, exhale for 6. So here you're engaging the mind, bringing it into the present moment, which is what that does when you really focus the mind, as well as introducing this breathing pattern that calms the system. So it's actually a very simple science, but it has many layers.
Wow, that's great. I have to admit that I'm practicing this right now. I just wanted to let you know.
I should be practicing
And
it right now.
I've already started inhaling and counting actually.
This is helping us.
Well, it's true. And so, for instance, for people who have trouble, let's pick a different issue, Mary, and tell us a way, an exercise that somebody. So let's say somebody has trouble focusing issues. We might call it here in Fairfield Vata brain, or they're ADD, or you're anxious, or you're just too much. I mean, I've got so much on my plate. It's hard for me to function sometimes.
Right, absolutely. So once again, giving the brain something to focus on, one thing to do is too much in the head. You want to get the energy down. And again, that's a good, longer exhale is good for that. So one technique in yoga is called the Ujjayi breath, which is a sounding breath. Sometimes it's called the ocean wave breath. The kids that I've taught call it the Darth Vader breath.
Yeah, that's what I've been told.
Right. It's not quite like that.
No, so
it's more of a constriction of the throat. So it's. Well, it's not quite like that.
Okay, I'm being over.
Right,
I just watched Tarzan, The Legend of Tarzan, and that sounded like the crocodile mating call.
Well, it's possible. I didn't, I didn't say I'm really from this planet, did I? No.
Well, the ujjayi is it's a constriction. I'll try to do it so it's not overstated, but it sounds like this. I don't know if you can hear that on the radio, but it's a gentle constriction of the throat. And ujjayi means the victory breath. And it's called that because breathing in that way gives you victory over the mind.
Okay, so what does somebody concretely do?
So it's a nice way for example, grounding, as you were saying, is to breathe normally on the inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose, but with this sounding breath, and exhale a little bit longer. It's actually very calming. So both of you are trying it.
Yes.
Yeah. So the sound, it's a very gentle way of breathing. The sound and the constriction elongate the breath, which actually brings more energy into the system and more oxygen into the system, as we mentioned before, is something that's very important. And it gives the mind something to focus on. So it's very, very calming.
So again, something concrete then.
Yes.
Would you suggest a time like the count for so many counts? Or would you just say, just get a natural rhythm, breathe in for a moment, hold it for a moment, and then breathe out with the ujjayi breath?
Yes.
Ujjayi breath.
I would say it would depend on sometimes in the emotion of a moment. If there's too much to have to remember, a person might not do it.
That's true. And so I might not be able to
do the count, for
do
example.
the count. I notice that my mind, even before I go to sleep, is spinning still.
Right.
Or if I'm in a fight or I'm upset, right? I can't remember to count.
Exactly.
Right. So all you're saying is when you hit that wall, take a break for just a moment and breathe. So, it doesn't mean that you're surrendering to your partner and they're right and you're wrong.
Absolutely not.
No, it's simply going, get your own head back together so that you're back in control again so you could change the pattern of what's going on.
Absolutely. And it can be something as simple as taking a moment before you speak if you're engaged in an angry exchange with somebody. Take a moment before you speak. Just take a deep breath. Don't worry about exhale, inhale, anything like that. Just breathe into the belly. Take a moment, step back, and often in that space, it gives a person a chance to regroup, and also the person that you're engaged with a chance to. It settles everything down.
Well, you know what I like about that is, I often tell people to ground themselves, again, because you're lost literally in your head,
Right.
I don't know how you say that, but, and to put your hand on your belly. So I could be in a fight with somebody, and I could still just put my hand on my belly, remind myself to breathe into my diaphragm, slowly breathe, and just breathe out a little bit more, with that ujjayi breath.
Uh-huh.
And, I want to over dramatic because
so
you had it a bit too quiet so that nobody could hear it on the radio. Right. And so you could do something like that, but you're doing something, and I like that because in a sense, we talked before in our last show about metaphors of storytelling, and you're going to tell us another story here in a moment. But this thought of I am changing the pattern of control within myself. I'm stop making it about somebody else or something outside me.
Exactly.
Right? Whatever is upsetting me. I stop making it about politics that's upsetting me. I start making it about my partner or my job or my this or my that. And I come back to, okay, I am taking back control over me. I'm taking my power back to me.
Exactly.
For just a moment. And so I'm literally putting my hand on my belly and I'm breathing in, and I'm breathing in a certain way. Centers my soul. And I'm slowing down again. And now I could go reach back out again.
Exactly. It brings a person back into just the present moment, beyond the story.
Yes.
Talking about storytelling. So it allows us to step out of the story that we're telling ourselves or that our person we're engaged with is telling us, be in the moment, and then that can give a different perspective on the story in the head as well.
Yes, absolutely. So you're listening to KRUU 100.1 on your FM dial, Mental Health Matters. Today we're talking about breathing, taking back control over your life, over yourself, over your head at this moment, and then going into what is that story, so to speak, that we're creating from this, from our lives, and how we could change that story, how we could get control. So the story is, I'm angry, or I'm upset, or I'm hyper, or I can't think clearly for whatever reason. I'm changing the story right here, right now, this moment, present and now, so that I can create a new future. It's not just now for another now, which I think people often mistake.
Right.
They often say, be here now, Well, that's great, but you're also missing the point of not just being here now, but be here now to go to the next point, to create a new future, to create a new possibility.
Absolutely. It's the more quiet and centered we can be in any moment affects the outcome, of course, of the following moments.
Yep.
So a very wise friend of mine once said, "The mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master."
Yes, I like that. Okay, so Mary,
Very
share
nice
with us
quote.
a story, since we got a couple minutes here, and give us an example of a story, and then we'll talk about that for a moment, and how we're using that.
Okay, well, this
And
is...
we'll focus on our breathing while you're doing that.
you
So
focus on your
everybody
breathing.
out
I'll
there,
focus on my breathing, too, so I'm
focus
not
on
so
your breathing
nervous.
while everybody's doing this. So this is an example. Practice your breathing. Come back to being present and listen to the beautiful voice of Mary guide us to a new vision of possibility.
Well, this is a story that comes from the Papago Native American tribe.
Oh, cool.
And they say that long ago, the Earth Maker made the earth and everything on it. And then he went around to look at his creation. So he walked across the mountains and the deserts, and everything was so beautiful and perfect that his heart was pleased. And he walked through the forests and saw the rivers and the lakes and the clouds in the sky, and everything was so beautiful and so perfect that his heart was pleased. He walked to the oceans and through the plains. Everything was beautiful and perfect, and his heart was pleased. And one day, he walked into a village. And in that village, there was a group of children playing in a circle, and there were some puppies playing as well. And they laughed as they played, and the Earthmaker's heart was pleased. And the women were working together, grinding corn into white meal, and they sang as they worked. And it was beautiful and perfect. Now, this was a day in the early fall. And as the Earthmaker watched this wonderful scene in the village, a single golden leaf blew out of a tree, floated down through the air, and landed on his foot. And suddenly, the Earthmaker began to have very sad thoughts. He looked at the children and he said, "Look at these beautiful young children. That boy with his strong arm, one day he'll be an old man and his arms will be weak, and that little girl's long hair will be gray, and that puppy will be blind, and look, the leaves are falling from the trees, and soon all the leaves will be gone, and the flowers will be dead, and it'll be winter." And the Earthmaker became so sad with the thought of the coming of winter and the passing of time. But then he stopped himself. He took a breath. And he looked around. And he saw the golden leaves against the blue sky, the purple and red flowers, the green of the grass, the black shining hair of the people in the sunlight. And he thought to himself, you know, I am the earth maker. I know I will make a new creation, something that captures all the beauty of this moment, something that will delight the children, and something that will make my heart pleased. So this is what he did. He opened up his creator's bag, and into it he put the red and the purple of the flowers, the green of the grass, the blue of the sky, the black from the children's hair, the white of the cornmeal. He took every single color that he could see. He put it into his creator's bag. He closed it up and he shook it really hard. And then, as an afterthought, he opened up the bag, took the songs from all the birds, put them into the bag as well, closed it up, shook it even harder, walked into the center of children, and said, "Children, gather around. I've made a new creation, something that will delight you." So very slowly he opened up his bag, and out flew hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of butterflies of every color imaginable, all singing like birds. And the children were so delighted. They chased the butterflies. The butterflies landed in their hair and on their clothes, and they laughed and they danced, and the Creator's heart was pleased. But there was a little songbird watching this whole scene from the top of her tree. She flew down onto the Earthmaker's shoulder and she said, "You broke your promise. You broke your promise." "Excuse me?" "You broke your promise. When you made the birds, you promised to give each one of us a song all of our own, and now you've made these new creations, all the colors of the rainbow, and taken our songs as well. You broke your promise. You broke your promise." And the Earthmaker thought, the bird is right. I did promise to give each bird a song all its own. And so it was that the Earthmaker took back the songs from the butterflies. And that's why, to this day, butterflies are silent. But the Papago people say that even in the dead of winter, when the days are short and the light is gone and the flowers and the trees all look dead, that even if you think of a butterfly in all of its graceful beauty and brilliant color, that even the thought of a butterfly will always please your heart, will always give you hope.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Wow.
Thank you for delighting us, Mary, with another beautiful story.
It was so enlightening.
Yeah, so tell us what you guys think, because it's interesting. You know, my bachelor's is actually in literature, and my first master's is in interdisciplinary arts. And so when I think of, it's hard for me not to hear of a story and think, okay, on what level am I analyzing or doing something, as opposed to, okay, start with the delight that I feel, the smile, the joy, you know, and then what do I want to create from your creation? Because it's now my creation inside me.
Yes.
So your gift to me, and now what am I doing with my special little gift? So, what do you guys think?
With this special little gift, it reminds us that we have so much to give into the society. Like, I'm a professor, I can give this gift to my students and make them feel delighted and enlightened. Nicole might be having some shivering stories what she's going to do with that gift.
Wow. For me, first of all, just listening, your voice is just so soothing, and for me, hearing that story, it was just so beautiful. Everybody's going to take away something different. And for me, I actually have a real love for butterflies. So just hearing that story was just it really touched me, and just kind of like that little sweet portion of my heart, just like, oh, that's such a beautiful story. But I really do agree. I think each one of these stories, regardless of what they're about, people are going to be taking something away, some kind of treasure that maybe they may even think about it whenever they're not feeling so hot. I really do. I agree with Pramila. We each have a gift, and I definitely believe yours is storytelling.
And I just want to add one thing. Like, I really love this idea of character building. One should not break his promise.
Right.
And see, even a bird can teach you that you should not break your promise.
Right.
And look into the beauty of the story, that this earth maker was so down to earth. He was ready to take ideas even from a bird. He never said, look, bird, I have made you, I cannot take ideas from you. So humble and modest earth maker was.
Absolutely.
Yes, and absolutely. And ego does not matter.
Right.
And I try and teach all my therapists that I train
Absolutely.
that ego is irrelevant. It's, again, we get so caught in this society. I am a this. No,
Right.
I am a this.
Exactly.
And it's, again, this polarization of an us versus them, or good versus bad, or I'm better than. There is no better than.
Right.
We're all human, and we're all on the same boat, and we're going to get off at the same place. And, when I hear that story, that notion of time, what is time to us?
Right.
And it comes back to that where we started today, talking about breathing. And remembering to come back to your breath now, everyone.
Yes.
That's what you're supposed to be practicing during
Supposed
this.
to be.
And practice that breath. And so whatever is going on with you as you're hearing this, or you're a therapist teaching this to a client, or you're a client teaching this to your child,
Right.
whatever is going on, whatever your arrangements in life, what are you doing with your time? What are you doing with your breath? What are you doing with your choice to take your presence of life to make a difference
Right.
in this life?
Right.
That's right.
Even God looks at time. That's
Yes.
what that made me think of too.
Right.
Just we're all talking about this. Yeah. We all need to be looking at our time and using it wisely and using it to help someone else.
And
Yes.
see how wisely Mary narrated this, that even if there is a change, you should not feel bad about it.
Right.
There's always a silver line in that change. And there's something beautiful, like these Native Americans were thinking when they can see this frozen ice or extreme cold, they start thinking about butterflies. So God tells you that you should see everything. Something beautiful every time. There's something beautiful in the change. So
Right.
change is beautiful, actually, and change is part of your life.
It's the only thing that doesn't change is change.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And because of this change, you start loving the weather. I mean, when you get sick of those summers, you say, oh, can we have some springs, or can we have some
Right.
autumn? And then we start looking ahead for cold.
Right. Right.
Yes. And we all get lost. But, the thing is, how do we relate to time, just like how do we relate to the environment or to the external, and not get lost in it? How do we connect to our partners or our friends and not get lost in our friends, become codependent on one side or narcissistic on the other? How do we find a way of connecting? True connection,
That's
which is about being at this moment, at this time, and breathing, right? So,
Exactly.
Mary, finish up with our last moments here. What would you like to say?
Well, in yoga, they say that life is the span of time between the first inhale and the final exhale.
Ooh.
So to use our breath wisely, our words wisely, which of course ride on the breath, is something that, especially in these times, hearing so much on the news and all the, everybody knows what we're hearing on the news. So, but to use, I think all of us could benefit from using our breath and our words wisely for the purpose of benefiting ourselves and others.
Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Pamela.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh.